So as you know, the hosts read a little something, and you may have noticed that Eden read haiku. That's normally my purview while I'm reading a micro-essay. I know. I recently came across a column that I wrote in 1996 as a journalism major working on the school newspaper. It's interesting to see where we are 20 years later, so I thought I would read that to you. It's titled, Cultural Dilemmas Facing Generation X. I know. My wife Cinnamon over there, who you may have heard laughing earlier, we met in journalism school, so she's read this. May have edited it. I don't know. On a recent trip to New York City, excuse me. On a recent trip to New York City, I spent a weekend in the University Club, a posh coat and tie members-only club. My uncle is a member. The sheer excess of the place overwhelmed me. The lobby was all granite and marble with 30-foot ceilings. Cigars were for sale at the desk. The rooms were infused with the scent of rose, hickory smoke, or old leather. And there was a private library full of rare and ancient books, all donated from private collections. What great things must have occurred in those rooms. In the heyday of private clubs, members were all Ivy Leaguers. Who your father was more important than who you were. I read the signs aside. I read the rolls, the pictures on the walls, and there was a Phelps P. Phelps III. Really? I'm not making that up. Phelps P. Phelps III. Today, 1996, mind you, today private clubs are closing all over the country. The University Club in Columbus, no relation, shut its doors this summer, blaming poor attendance. There are still plenty of places still around, but most are associated with golf courses or private communities, and they're supported mostly by rich people over 50 or older. It remains to be seen whether clubs will survive at all when our generation comes of age. We're so fickle about whether we like or detest excess of that vein. We pierce our noses, listen to Pearl Jam while we smoke our cigars or over caviar, cappuccino and martinis, dripping brie on our Doc Martens. We might enjoy this lifestyle, but something in our upbringing tells us to distrust it, creating this blend of sarcasm and indulgence. Come on, you tricks. Our bodies say, ooh, sit on that overstuffed leather chair. But our minds say, but say something witty and deprecating about it first. How much of a generation lost are we? Sitting alone in the giant rooms of the club, I felt out of place for certain. But it was because it was not for me yet. I'm not ready to belong there now. It's somewhere I could be in 10, 20 years, but not as a 21-year-old in his only blazer. Like the members of Generation X who long for the lounge days, or the new beat poets, or even the neo-hippies following Fish, I was in a place that is not ours, but could be someday. We are a generation cultivating and excavating the past for culture far removed from the silicone, HTML, www world that we have had the heaviest hand in creating. As our environment becomes more and more computer-enhanced and reliant, 1996, remind you, we search for elements of earlier days when there were no computers. Few people yearn for for Big Blue, Mac 2 days of the 80s. And those who do want the progressive rock scene, not the computer scene. Our generation wants less an escape from reality than an escape from cyber reality. We are a postmodern generation. We are multimedia. We're outsider artists. Our culture is made up of laser printers and fountain pens, CD-ROMs and 78s, raves and speakeasies. We have live jazz in our cyber cafes. Our folk singers have email. they updated the VW bug. The question of where our generation is going is immaterial since we have no idea where we started. Our formative teenage years were spent railing against the crashed me decade. Then the opulence we had grown used to dissolved and we ended up alienated. It's not surprising that punk is in a resurgence. It was the music of the disenfranchised in the 70s, and that's how a lot of us Gen Xers feel. No longer assured of what the future would bring, we became either slackers or workaholics. More people I know fit into one of these two categories than any others, and their personal or parental wealth has nothing to do with it. After the hard work some of us have put in, I hope there's still a university club around us to go be snooty and feel like all snooty and feel like all our toil was for naught. Today, and now I'm out of that column, today in 2016, vinyl is making a comeback. We have music and video games that incorporate the 8-bit graphics and sound of the video games of our youth, and private clubs are making a comeback too, both in an egalitarian-ish form in the newly revamped Chicago Athletic Association and in the snooty form with the members-only Soho House, whose Chicago branch is the latest of 7 locations around the globe. And we've got restaurants and bars where exclusivity is enforced not through membership, but through online ticketing systems. Whether this is all what I expected as a 20-year-old typing away in a fluorescent-lit college newspaper office remains to be seen. But we sure live in interesting times. Thank you. 1996 was 20 years ago. Man.